Hey, what is up, everyone? It is the Crypto Coach Blockchain Wayne. Many of you know me as Wayne Marcel. Decided to start doing this show, doing this live every Thursday at 7 p.m. just because there's so many people I know that have questions, concerns, whether you've been involved in cryptocurrency and blockchain and Bitcoin, or maybe you haven't, or maybe you thought about it, but it's too intimidating. The goal for this is just to kind of help you to answer questions. If anybody wants to come on with questions, they can drop questions in the comment box, and I will, I'll pretty much be able to answer those. Just pulled up my comments now to make sure I could see them. So I can answer comments, answer questions, or I can just talk if nobody's asking questions about different use cases. I just did a podcast this week, just posted it today about the real world use case for cryptocurrency, for Bitcoin. And I'm not talking about hypothetical scenarios. I'm talking about places where people have needed to use cryptocurrency to protect their livelihood, to survive, to thrive. And it's because in many cases, we're living in a world where currency is controlled by government, right? Governments are private entities. In the United States, it's the Federal Reserve. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, but there's use cases where, there's a lawyer in Venezuela who, if he would not have been utilizing Bitcoin, he would have lost everything because their currency collapsed. They experienced hyperinflation, and he would have lost everything because you think, oh, well, an attorney, they make pretty good money, but when all his clients' currency devalues at the same time, nobody can do anything. So, and they're stuck with sanctions. So Bitcoin, basically what he said was Bitcoin saved him from the collapse of that currency. And then you look at places like Argentina, Zimbabwe, Cyprus, all these places have experienced hyperinflation. I know a story of a Uber driver that lives in Vegas, and he sends money back to his mom in Zimbabwe. And it used to cost him a lot of money, 30 to 40% just to send money back. And then there was a devaluation because Zimbabwe's currency was so volatile that by the time she would get it, it wouldn't have the purchasing power it needed. So what happened was he educated her on Bitcoin, started sending her Bitcoin, and talked to the shop owners around the town that she lived in and got them to start accepting Bitcoin too. And they created their own economy on top of a failed economy. Now, those of us in the US, the UK, Canada, or anywhere around, we have a system that works right now, for now, right? We don't need Bitcoin or cryptocurrency just yet, but let's talk about what's happening right now as we speak, right? What is happening is you look at their signs going all over the US right now. Retailers are having to put up signs saying there's a coin shortage because the Fed is running low on coins. And so some places are asking you to not pay cash, and other places are mandating you don't pay cash. And that's whether it's because of the coin shortage or because of COVID-19 fears. But what does a cashless world look like? It's very scary because right now money is a system of control. When you look at money in terms of what, think about, bank oversight right now. I know people that have done nothing illegal and have had their bank accounts frozen just because they may have, moved their business to a location the bank wasn't happy with. And in that case, their livelihoods threatened. Banks and government have the ability to freeze money. And when you become a completely cashless society and the only available cash system is controlled by the banks and the government, well, then it becomes even more of a system of control, a system of surveillance. Then you may think, I'm not doing anything wrong with money. I don't care if it's surveillance. Well, think about being able to pay, the neighbor's kid for cleaning up something around your house, pay him a few bucks. You can't do that. But also think about this. There's 18% of the US, which equates to about 60 million people that don't have access to bank accounts, or either don't have access or have limited access. So if they are taken out, then they will then lose their livelihood, not have an ability to provide for their family. And let's face it, most of the crime that happens in the world right now is based on the lack of equality, the lack of justice. And so when you do that and you force people into a system, some like that, some of those people are going to turn to crime because they don't have access to current financial systems, financial structures. And that's I'm just talking about in the US right now. But you look around the world, there's about 2 billion people that don't have access to any kind of financial services, financial plans, financial institutions, right? And there's another 2.5 billion that have access to it, but it's limited. And even in that, you think about the way the system is set up right now. If you wanted to invest in certain assets, you have to be an accredited investor, which means you have to have roughly, you'd have to have roughly, 100,000 plus in savings or investments, are making a certain amount a year just to be able to invest, because they're trying to protect you. So I'm about to bring on one of my friends, business partner, Bilal Mia, the Crypto Vader, is about to join us just to talk some about crypto.
Hey,
Hey,
what's happening?
Bilal. Hey, how's it going, man? Appreciate you hopping in.
Yeah, no problem. I actually went to bed. I was lying in bed and I thought, okay, might as well, end the day on a positive note.
Yeah, it's
How's
pretty
things?
late for you, man. I'm talking about hadn't had anybody submit any questions, so I'm talking about just the case, the need for Bitcoin, the need for cryptocurrency. Not just, right now I talked about like where you're at, right? UK and the US, we don't really need cryptocurrency. But you got to say yet. We don't need it yet, right? But you talk about countries that have experienced hyperinflation and government failures, bank failures, and they need it, right? So,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on just what do people need to know if they don't know anything about Bitcoin? What do they need to understand about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
I think we're really early. I mean, even now with this technology, it's basically, yes, we've had a lot of people talk about Bitcoin as in speculation of the price. But when you think about the technology, the main thing about this technology is decentralization. I think people need to understand the power of decentralization. When you have centralized control of any system, when you've got central control, you're basically at the mercy of certain individuals who have power, of wealth, or some kind of ideology. And when you have a world where we're all kind of living in a globalized community now, we're basically connected, aren't we, through the internet? Look at us now talking from two different parts of the world, and all these ideas and everything. It can be a fairer world, if you have a decentralized system, a system where you don't have that central authority figure basically telling you how things should be done. It can be a more fairer world where everybody has a say. So there's a difference between the currency itself, Bitcoin, and then you have the technology behind it. And I think there's a confusion around what Bitcoin is. And I think once people understand that, yes, it can be used as a currency, but by looking at the institutional investors that are putting their money into Bitcoin as a like a safe haven, uh protecting themselves from the economy, what's going on right now. These wealthy people are basically, they have wealth managers, and wealth managers are banking on Bitcoin. They're hoarding Bitcoin in these um wallets where they don't really have to deal with the technology. They're just basically custodial wallets, um and they just kind of know that there's something about Bitcoin. And it's modeled around gold. The all the characteristics of money um and gold is there with Bitcoin. So, it's scarce, 21 million Bitcoin. We have over 18 million in circulation, but there only can be 20 million. And when you look at the different characteristics, you realize that this has all the characteristics of money, characteristics of gold, but we've talked about this before, Wayne. It's programmable money.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the technology, it gives you that decentralization, and it's that what's powerful. You've seen all these projects that are now built with that technology from Bitcoin, that source code that is open source. And you have amazing projects that are being worked on in the DeFi space, decentralized finance. Talk about one that I've been talking about today, kind of teasing my community with, is OGN, or Origin Protocol. And it's amazing if you actually look into that project. The founders are from like, PayPal, and the I think there's one of the founders is like an early engineer of YouTube. These guys know what they're doing, and if you look into these projects, it's a real opportunity. It's like investing in Uber back in 2011, and not having to have the money that Goldman Sachs had, or Jeff Bezos had. You can basically have these opportunities. So I think people need to realize that technology changes all the time.
Yeah.
And once you have one technology that it usually takes about 10 years to kind of settle in, and blockchain has had 10 years. Now on top of that technology, you're having all these different projects that can exist because blockchain exists. And I think
Yeah.
that's what people need to understand, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And decentralized is one thing. When you understand the word, I love it, you love it, because we realize that what happens when people are put into control, when a small group of select people have control of certain assets, whether it's your money, your food, your water, your medicine, that system becomes corrupted, right? It's you don't have to say, well, not all the time, because history shows you it just happens over and over and over again. And there's a misconception. Some people say, well, I won't get into cryptocurrency till it's regulated. Well, what they don't realize is it is regulated. Now, regulators are basically people that say, hey, we need to make regulations. And by doing that, you're going to have a need for a middleman. And I'm going to create that economy for that. And that's a corrupt system. But the regulation in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, it's regulated by the code and cryptography, right? The decentralized nature, the way the network works, and the code of that, and then the cryptography. That's your regulation, really. And so that's really what a lot of people need to realize is and this is one thing too. So let's talk about this trust. It's funny because I'm thinking back to the last few podcasts I did, and the one I did this week was on real world use cases of cryptocurrency. It's already in use. And then what I did not too long ago was about trust. How many people here, if you're watching this live or recorded, comment a number one if you don't trust what the media is telling you, right? It's going to blow up with one, right? So whether that's now or later, but people don't trust what the media is telling them. Most people realize that a lot of government institutions are corrupt. The banking and financial sector is corrupt because there's news every day about fake accounts, money laundering, not done by criminals. Criminals with licenses, people that are running banks. And so trust in the system is lacking. And well, how do you feel? What does Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies do for when it comes to trust?
Well, if you look at traditional systems, if you look at like finance, there's always going to be, it's in human nature. We're always going to have scammers. We're always going to have people who are going to take advantage of power when they're given that power. It's about, not everybody's going to be bad, right? Not everybody's going to play dirty, but there will be some. Like recently, with Chinese gold reserves, what we found is like a lot of it's fake gold. So things go funny in like traditional investments as well. You have like fake gold. 4% of their gold reserve is fake. you know so there's always going to be that bad actor. Even in the Bitcoin space, you have a lot of scammers. I just actually I went on YouTube and I was about to watch a video, and there was a YouTube ad. You watch these YouTube ads that
Yeah.
come up about 5 seconds before the video starts, and you have to like skip the ad. And it was a scam. It was basically Vitalik talking on one end of the screen, and this Bitcoin QR code with these like people that can basically double their Bitcoin or whatever. It was basically a scam that had used YouTube and advertising on YouTube, on a genuine video about another project. So there's always going to be that, but what people have to see is like, if you see, there's been so many scams in the past, right? Even with the in the crypto space. that people lose money, and then they lose trust in everything. They just realize that, okay, I've lost money, I'm not going to touch this anymore. But what they need to realize is that, yes, there are scammers out there, there are people that are going to abuse your trust, but don't let that stop you from learning about a technology that's going to revolutionize everything. It's going to change everything. It's when people are interested in this kind of technology that people take advantage of it. Like there's a currently there's a token sale going on of Avalanche. It's a great project. I shared it on my timeline. That there's a token sale. I think it's the 15th of July. People can actually participate. But in my junk mail, right, I was just cleaning out my junk mail. There was an email about this token sale, and it just looked genuine. But when you look at the email, who it's sent from, it was a Hotmail address. And you've got to realize that there always will be these
Yeah,
guys. But when it comes to blockchain, going back to the trust factor, it basically is a trustless system. Okay, you don't have to trust any central authority. Okay, you don't have to trust anyone, because it's a network of people who are running these machines, who are validating blocks of transactions. And these transactions could be transaction of money, but it's actually transaction of value. It could be anything. It
data.
doesn't have to be currency. It can be any form of data where, on a supply chain, for example, where you don't have to trust a certain person who is saying that this is the true data. You're trusting a network, and everybody's like validating that data together. So it takes out that need for trusting a central authority or a central person, a central point.
Yeah,
And when you are trusting in the code, like you said, you're trusting cryptography. And there's a lot of other things that go into play when it comes to blockchain, like psychology, human psychology, mathematics, gamification. All these things are coded into the code of blockchain. So it's really a genius who has created this. Satoshi, whoever Satoshi was, is a genius. And what we have from that now, we can take and do many things. We don't have to rely on corrupt systems anymore, and that's the beauty of it.
yeah. I mean, you think about, like I was talking earlier. I don't know if you were on yet. I was talking about the unbanked and how many of those are, where there's 18% of people in the U.S., which is about 60 million people, don't have access to bank accounts for one reason or another. And so when you look at that, and you look at a system that can turn any smartphone, it could be $1,000 smartphone or it could be a $20 smartphone, right? I mean, they come in all sizes now, that people can become their own bank, have their own banking system, create their own value. And when we get to a point where it doesn't matter what the price is in relation to a US dollar or a British pound or a euro, then it could just be an exchange of value to where you can transact and it doesn't matter. Right now, we're kind of a lot of people jump in, for the speculation, for the potential of gains and future rises, but there's so many other implications that this technology has, that it's more than just an investment. It's really, it's an evolution where everything has evolved over time, and finance and money is one of those things that hasn't. But we live in a digital world. We live in a world right now without borders, right? You and I can talk all the time. We don't need borders. You can pay me in crypto for a hat, and I can send you a hat to the UK. And without any needing any permission, right? So if your bank didn't like the fact that you were sending money to somebody in the US, they could freeze your account, and vice versa, for me. But cryptocurrency gives you that control back. One of the things I say, look, if you want to see how easy it is for banks to freeze your money, at least in the US, make a donation to WikiLeaks. All WikiLeaks has done is expose corruption in governments and other entities, right? But they're considered a blacklisted organization. And if you try to send them a donation in cash, you're going to get your bank account frozen.
Yeah.
So it cryptocurrency allows you to control what you do, and governments and regulatory institutions, they're always going to say they're trying to protect the public, trying to protect the people. And it's really not about protection, it's about control, right? Because if it was about protection, then I don't know, I mean, there's so many different cases we can see where banks have been the ones that have been caught laundering money or creating fake scammy accounts, or any of these things that are going on. It's just, it's not really for your protection. So that's why it's important to understand, to learn about crypto, to at least dabble. Now, I in the comments I dropped a link, and that's to our group. We have Bilal started the Blockchain Training Academy. I came on and merged with him earlier this year. We've got a private group, but it's open to anyone, even if you're not a member of the actual academy, because we're constantly dropping value, talking about content, answering questions. So if you want to learn more about crypto, make sure to click on the Facebook link. That's just to join our group, and you can learn more over time about cryptocurrency and blockchain. Because I also tell people you should never invest or trade more than the level of your understanding. One way to do that is to learn more, educate yourself more. And that's something Bilal's been doing that for years in the space. We met up a couple years ago and just kind of started following each other. And now we're working together on a lot of projects just to bring that education to people, because it is kind of like when you think about adoption of the internet, let's look back at technology adoption over time. If you look at electricity, it took a while for people to adopt it and put it in their homes, right? And then cars took a while. A lot of people were saying, why do we need cars when we have perfectly good horses, right? And then the internet came along, and it was very clunky. And in the mid 90s, it was talked about as a fad, something that was never going to catch on. It was too complicated. It was too clunky. And where are we now? Applications and systems built, technology has evolved, and now it's something that everybody uses. So if we're living in a digital world, we use digital products, a digital currency that is borderless, open, permissionless, all of those things. You can, it's a given that's going to catch on, and those types of systems are going to be adopted, by I don't want to say by the masses, but by many people that realize the need for it.
True. I think what people need to realize is that yes, it can be like really technical. Some things right now can go over your head. Some of the things like decentralization, blockchain technology, and all this stuff. That's the benefit of getting in early. If you were trying to understand the potential of the internet back in the 90s, then you're going to have a tough time using dial-up and having to wait, and for that nostalgic sound that you used to hear, and then get on the internet and then pay that premium of like your phone bills and stuff to actually start a website up. Is going to be difficult, not as easy as it is today. But the benefit of getting in early is that yes, you're going to have to basically go through some technical hurdles and stuff like that, but because you're early, you will have the benefits, and those benefits are the fact that you are basically one of the early adopters of this technology. And because you are so early, you will have those opportunities that others will regret in the future and not have taken advantage of. Like, just imagine if you knew how social media would take off, if you knew how the internet would be so, how we would be so dependent on the internet, everybody, you know. So if you had the knowledge you have today about the internet, what it has done for communication back in the 90s, what would you have done? you know I'm sure you would have spent time creating your website or your business online at that time if you knew the potential. So it's the same thing right now, where majority of people out there have no idea what this is going to be like. You can't even imagine but the technology blockchain is going to be the backbone. Okay, by the time the masses use cryptocurrencies daily, and you've got to think about the younger generation, my children, Wayne's children, they're the ones that are going to use it like naturally, just like they use their iPads naturally. When they start using it naturally, the technology behind it, the little small writing that's going to be on the box when you buy your devices from the electronics store. It will have the names of those companies that have created the technology behind it, but you will not be interested. It will be boring. It'll be boring because it will be the norm. I mean, why, when you use the internet, do you think about HTTPS, or do you think about the protocols behind it, or you don't. You don't think about how Hotmail works or Gmail works. You just use email, right? Just send an email. You don't have to worry about how it actually works unless you're really curious. So right now is the time to jump onto this technology and understanding. You've got people like Wayne and myself as well who are educating you. There's no hidden agenda here where Wayne's trying to pull you into something or I'm trying to pull you into something. We've discovered this technology over time, and we've learned about it, and we know how revolutionary this technology is going to be for people. That the more people who adopt this technology now, the more quicker we can change the world and get there. So it's a benefit for everyone, because if you look at the global problems right now with the pandemic and everything that's happening, where businesses are struggling, and there's a lot happening right now, right, that is relevant. If you look around you, if you watch the news, what's showing on the news, like Wayne mentioned about, do you trust everything on the media? Majority of the stuff you see on the news is basically what they want you to see, right? Like the Chinese fake gold, was that on the headlines? No, it wasn't. Like there's a banking crisis happening right now. The amount of money that's been pumped in, like billions of dollars, like
Right.
in this country now, they're giving out £10 per person to dine out. If you go out and have a meal, they give you £10. They're basically giving away money.
Yeah.
The reason they're doing that is money has no value anymore. They just printing it and giving it, because they're trying to bring back to life a dead economy. It's all dead.
Yeah.
The banking system's dead, the economy's dead, everything's dead. So from this, every time the market takes a dip, when things like this happen, recently I had a guest on, who basically compared the recession of the 1920s with what's happening now, and it's basically the same. The only difference is one is in black and white, one is in color. It's everything's happening again. It's something that happens after a long period of time, and it's probably once in a lifetime experience for a lot of us. To
Yeah.
shut down the whole world, you're not going to get the governments and the people in power are not going to get this kind of opportunity again. So there's something happening in behind this. From this, there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to die out, but a lot of industries are going to come up from this. The
Yeah.
Amazons and the Googles that came out from the last, from the bust of the internet, like from the boom and the bust, they came out from that, and now we're going to have a lot of companies as well. And it's probably you, who is watching this, is probably going to have that amazing idea, but you need to understand the technology that's here today that can give you that springboard to bounce on and create that business that can be the next big business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, now is the time. A lot of people are going to realize later on that they should have gotten in. It's going to be, not it's not going to be too late to be a participant or a user, but it's going to be too late to benefit financially from what's happening. So that's the biggest thing. Why it's important now. You may say, "Hey, my banking system works fine right now." Well, we're starting to see cracks in that system. One thing that really concerns me, and it was announced today, for the last 10 months, the Federal Reserve, which I already knew this, and I've talked about this in the past, the Federal Reserve has been pumping money into banks in overnight markets called repo markets, because banks had no liquidity. Now, that's a problem. Liquidity is always a problem, no matter what you have. If you don't have liquidity, things come to a grinding halt. You think about an oiled machine. When machines don't have oil anymore, they come to a grinding halt. So today, the Fed announced that they were ending their overnight repo loans to help out. So how is that going to impact the future? I don't know, but we're going to see. My guess is there's going to be an opportunity to blame a lot of the crashing economy or financial problems on this virus. The virus is real, but this problem in the financial system has been real for a long time, and it's been, think about a virus that's slowly been spreading since the 70s. And at least in the U.S., whenever they started the Bank Secrecy Act that Nixon started in the 70s, and then he took the U.S. dollar off of the gold standard, and we started to see a devaluation of the dollar, which we've seen in inflation, which is why prices continue to go up. And don't think after all the printing that's happened this year, you're not going to see prices go up. It's going to be hidden at first because you're going to go to buy a package of something at a grocery store, and it may be the same price, but you'll have less in the package, right? So you're going to start to see those things happen. We've already seen some prices go up on certain things. That's not because the cost of goods is going up. It's because our currency is being devalued. So that's what happens if you study history. And when I studied history, I realized this is something I need to be a part of. You studied the history of adoption of technology and the different phases it goes in, and also the history of money, the history of fiat currencies, fiat being government control. It's not backed by anything. The only thing that gives our money value right now is our trust in the system, which, that's what we talked about, right? Trust is what is slowly eroding in the system. So it's important to hedge your bets and look at us. Are you going to want another prepackaged system that's put together by some elite people in power? Or do you want something that is decentralized, that gives freedom, true freedom to transact, interact, to survive and thrive to everyone, and not limit people based on what side of the border they were born on, right? Anybody can participate in the cryptocurrency, in the cryptocurrency economy. I was listening to a book, one of my favorite audio books to listen to is The Internet of Money. There's 3 different ones right now that Andreas Antonopoulos did. And he was talking about, he didn't state which country he's in, but he said a Western country. My guess it was probably either Western Europe or the US. And he talked to a gentleman that was 20 years old that came up to him after, and he was talking about banking the unbanked and how cryptocurrency can allow people that don't have access to financial markets and systems to be able to participate now with cryptocurrency. And this guy was 20 years old, had lived in that country for 15 years, but he says every time he goes to fill out a bank account or any kind of financial forms, when he puts his name and his country in, it's automatically shut down because he was a refugee out of Iran, right? So he's not legal in the country where he lives, and he wants to be legal. But when he puts that he's from Iran, because of where he was born, something he had no control over, he can't get a bank account. And those type of people should be able to have bank accounts, or should be able, now you don't need to, banks don't need to give them bank accounts now, because now, cryptocurrency can do that for them, because they can get in and participate in that. And they don't have any money in a financial institution, so they're easily can start accepting cryptocurrency for whatever they do for work or bring value to people, whatever exchange, and create their own economy on top of one that says you're not included.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, that you can create your own economy, and there's going to be so many different types of cryptocurrencies that are going to be used for so many different types of things. If you think about Uber, it's like, yes, Uber was amazing, but even then you had a middleman. You still had to, the Uber driver was not getting the full benefits. So when you have this decentralized system, it will be just you paying the driver, no middleman, nobody in between. And the driver is going to get the full rewards. If you're paying a charity, the charity will get the full amount. There's not going to be any middleman taking a cut,
Yeah.
So
imagine a self-owning car, though. Imagine that driver paying crypto to the car itself to keep the car running, to pay the car note to whoever actually, whether the car owns itself or another company owns the car.
Yeah. So when you have, that's another thing. It's like we're moving into a world where we're going to have devices. I mean, your phone is a smartphone, your TV is a smart TV, but you will have other devices around your house that is smart, which means it's connected to the internet, right?
whoever.
But what about the time when you have your car connected online through blockchain? You can actually trust your car, because you don't want to trust your smart car to would you trust your smart car, a driverless car, to take your children to school? You wouldn't trust it if it was connected to the internet, because it can get hacked, right?
Yeah.
But what if you have a decentralized internet where it cannot be hacked? There is no central point of attack. So in that way, when you have a decentralized system, then many things can happen. You can now have a car that is driverless and you can fully trust it. The trust factor, remember we talked about, we don't need to trust the central authority. We don't need to, so the trust is, not a problem anymore. So you can trust your car to take your children and drop them off at school, and you won't have a problem with that. If it gets hacked, then it can, if somebody has, if you have an enemy, your car can suddenly go in a different direction. You don't want that. So in the same way, there's going to be so many different things that are going to happen, and we're going to be actually paying robots. We're going to be paying drones. Like Amazon's going to drop your parcel and you're going to pay with cryptocurrency. It doesn't make sense to pay them in cash.
Yeah.
So the world is changing, whether you like it or not. I think a lot of people will say, oh, that's scary, that's creepy, I don't want to do anything like that. But hang on a minute, you probably said the same thing about the internet when you were filling that form in with your details. How many times have you done that since? People get used to it. When technology becomes the norm, it becomes the norm. You will get used to it. So this is the time to learn about it as much as you can, because hidden behind what's happening is so much opportunity right now. I think people are just kind of negative around what's happening with their business and the world right now. But from this, there are so many opportunities, and you've got to grasp these opportunities. And the way you can't rush into it, you have to learn about it. You have to learn about from the basics and move on, and then things will click.
Yeah. Yep. Well, Bilal, Cryptovator, man, thanks for hopping in today.
No problem, man.
Thanks for everybody for watching, whether you're watching this live or recorded. Drop a comment in, let us know where you're watching from. That way, and like I said, I added the link to our Blockchain Training Academy group. It's a free group. We do have Blockchain Training Academy where we have paid members, but the group is free for everyone. We're constantly dropping a lot of value in there. We've done monthly challenges throughout April, May, and June, where each day we taught a little bit different about cryptocurrency, blockchain, and other related topics. So check it out. Join us, and I'll be doing this live every Thursday. So if anybody else, if you've got questions, either send them to me in advance or hop in on Thursday at this time. If you want to hop in on the live, I'll drop you a link if you want to talk about something or ask some questions live. So Bilal, thanks again for hopping on.
No problem.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. Y'all have a great night.
Take care. Bye-bye.